afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Lifestyle with Dr. Moby. I'm Dr. Moby, and today we are honored with great guest, Greg. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. And I'll hear from Greg himself. He's into real estate investment. He's going to teach us a lot of skills today. So let's catch up with him. Hi, Greg. So tell us about yourself, sir.
Sure. Yeah. So as you said, I'm a real estate investor. Me and my wife, we live here in Phoenix, Arizona, and I've been a real estate investor since 2012, and also a full-time realtor since 2015. So pretty much every day is real estate one way or another, whether that's investing or talking to clients, buying and selling, listening to podcasts. Yeah. So I'm just surrounded by real estate. I love it. This is what I do, and I'm really glad that I, took that path and chose that path in life. So yeah, it's been really great. Like I said, I love what I do, and I'll kind of go any direction you want to take me in this interview here.
Okay, great. Well, we have a lot of directions to ask you, a lot of questions. So I have a few questions I'm going to ask you. But I would like to ask you, what got you into real estate, or why do you think real estate has better prospect than anything?
Yeah. So what actually got me into real estate? Before I became a investor and a realtor, I was working like many people were or are in a W-2 job, working in a cubicle, and I wasn't making a lot of money. I didn't really feel like I was, giving a lot of value as well. So I just didn't see myself sitting in that cubicle for the next 30, 40 years. So I was actually just talking to a buddy of mine, and we were doing some real estate investing here and there. But he said, "Well, why don't you just become a realtor and help people in real estate? And obviously that will help you learn about the contracts and connections and making relationships, which is what exactly real estate is all about." So in 2015, I took the jump. I quit that job, became a full-time realtor, and then also just did my real estate investing during that time as well. So they kind of came together very well at that time. So that kind of took me down a different path. And the reason I love real estate, a lot of my family is on the Wall Street side and stocks and bonds. Nothing wrong with that, but I really feel like if you want to build a portfolio and a lifestyle that I wanted to build, real estate was my path, not just, going stocks and bonds. And we can kind of get into the details of, why I like real estate a little bit more than stocks and bonds, if you'd like.
Yeah, let's do that, because I want to hear too, because I was always intrigued between these two.
Yeah, of course. So there are two reasons that I really like real estate. The first one is it's collateralized, meaning, when you buy a piece of property, you're actually buying that piece of property, as opposed to, when you buy Apple stock, you own, stock in a company, which is great, but it's not really collateralized by anything. If that stock goes down, it can go down for any reason. And a lot of those reasons are out of our control. So, for example, if the president of Apple, commits fraud for whatever reason, that stock's going to automatically go down no matter what. What I really like about real estate is the piece of property that real estate, it has inherent value. So I can, flip it, I can sell it, I can rent it to somebody. So there's a lot of different areas, a lot of different things that I can do with real estate that I feel I can't do in the stock market. So that's the first thing. The other thing that I really like about real estate is you can partner and you can leverage other people's time and experience and money. So, like if you and I partnered on a deal, let's say you brought the deal and I bring the money, that's something that I don't want to look for a deal, but I have $100,000 sitting in my bank account. Let's say you and I can work together, put a deal together, and I'm still bringing the one aspect that I have, but I'm leveraging your expertise as bringing the deal or bringing the money or underwriting the deal. So there's a lot of different ways you can leverage other people with partnerships in real estate. And then once you start doing that, I feel like, that's when you can really take off with real estate investing, producing those returns that you're looking for and create the lifestyle that you're ultimately after.
Okay, so just kind of clarity, are you talking about residential real estate or is it commercial?
So there's a little bit of both. I'm mainly in the residential world, but everything that I basically spoke about, the collateralization and partnering and leveraging other people, it works in residential, commercial. It works in every and any niche of real estate, really.
Okay. And what mostly is about for me is I mean, I also kind of looked at real estate many times, and I said, I need to have, and there was a time I had more than one house, but I always find it, what was difficult, was that, the value, some houses are overpriced, as you know, so they would be, and they would lose a lot of value too later on, or you could buy when they're low and then it couldn't go high. So either way, what I always find is those who would take care of them. So renting it out, it could be, or the renter could be good or bad, or could be. So those, I know there are companies who take care of, right? So tell me what your take is on that.
Yeah, so I actually started out managing my own properties. I started out in buying a single family home, and it was actually kind of cool. I bought my first single family home in 2010, right after the financial crash,
Mhm.
and it wasn't a rental property. I just lived there, as my primary residence. A couple years later, still here in Phoenix, I bought one in 2012, and everything was still pretty much pennies on the dollar. So I bought a second home and then just rented out that first one, and all of a sudden I became a landlord. I was writing up leases, and looking back on that lease, it was probably written very horribly. But in the beginning, I managed the properties myself just because it was one property, and I figured I can do it, and I did it. It wasn't very hard. I did have some challenges, but yeah, at that point, I was a real estate investor. Fast forward to probably 3 or 4 years later, I accumulated some more properties, and at a certain number, I was like, you know what, this is a little bit too much work for me. I'd rather hand it over to a professional. So that's when I hired a property manager. So I was kind of on both sides of that coin, which I really feel like a lot of people, when they do start investing, they start off managing their properties to save money and gain that experience. But there is a tipping point once you get to a certain number. At least for me, it was taking up a lot more time than I wanted to, and I wasn't, a professional property manager. I knew what I was doing, but I didn't really know the ins and outs. And paying somebody, the 8% or whatever I was paying that property manager was well worth it to take it off my plate. Know that those properties were managed professionally, and I can use that time to find other deals or work with other clients. So yeah, to kind of answer your question, I was on both sides of that coin. I'm really happy to be on the property manager side now and just dishing it off to the property manager and having that relationship where they take those phone calls, and I just get the phone calls from the property manager if there is something wrong or a vacancy or what have you.
And that's probably right. I mean, it's not difficult. I mean, I manage myself a lot of offices. Actually, when I had my first house, I asked somebody to do, the flooring, and they said they asked 6 grand. Okay, it was a big house, so they said 6 grand. I said, well, nobody pays me 6 grand, in 1 week or even 3 days. I'm gonna do myself. So I learned how to do it. So me and my wife, we finished it. It took maybe extra week, but we saved $6,000, right?
Wow, good for you.
So I thought, yes. I mean, I never thought I'll learn it, but it's easy. You kind of put your, yeah. You might do wrong a little bit, but then eventually you'll get better. So same for stands for when they were building, I will look at drywall, how it's done, and it kind of gets you, okay, this is how this done. I mean, you have never seen it before, so but once you do it, so what I'm saying is, I guess you can do some things yourself. So but advantage is if you know the process, even you don't do it, but
Hmm.
advantage is you should still know the process. Okay.
Of course.
And if somebody you are hiring and they do wrong work, then at least you know where they did wrong. And that is, to me, in real estate, is very important. So I mean, I do have a little bit now. So of course I built house, and then I know exactly shingles, all those details, insulation, every detail I know. Of course, once you go through that. But same thing is, that what you're saying is the management is a lot of work. The first part was being on call, or calling, anything can go, small thing can go wrong. than renting out. Now, I have one of my questions, or one of my viewers shared with me before, that they had rented house, and the landlord was also attorney and knew real estate attorney, knew exactly what how ins and out of the law,
Hmm.
and they would not leave the property because they would basically at the hearing pass out or do something medically. So they knew the kind of way out from that. They would not leave the property. The people who owned it, the property, was also attorneys, so two attorneys.
Hmm.
Okay, so then they knew exactly what how to play the game, both.
Right.
So they would not leave the place. It took 1 year, multiple hearings, because you can file, but you can't throw their stuff out, right?
Hmm.
So then, in the end, I know how true it is, but in the end, they left, and they left the tap water on.
Oof. Jeez.
So after hearing that story, I said, "Oh, wait a minute! Oh my God, it's too much dust," and the whole house is ruined. So of course, there's nothing anyone can do, right? I mean, the best you can get is reclaim from insurance. But there are people, unfortunately, they know the system, right?
Hmm. Yeah, that definitely happens in real estate, and it could happen to you. Depending
Yeah.
on how long you're going to be in, this game, or investing in real estate, and it's just one of those things that is, yeah, it's there's pros and cons to everything, and yeah, there's definitely some cons, like you said. There's people who know the system; they can take advantage of it. Tenants and squatters, and yeah, it's just part of the system, and it's another thing to overcome, but it's kind of a fun problem to talk to other investors about. And if you do ask investors, what's your biggest mistake, or have you made an error, or your horror story, every investor is going to have one or two that they can pull from.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And that's but bottom line is not to be scared, but still, I think real estate is a good option.
Hmm.
And I actually, I had a friend, he used to live with me, and he was broke, almost broke at one time. He was sitting in a bar, and he had no money, and he was listening to these TV ads about real estate. Somehow he caught that idea, and they said, okay, I'm gonna start. Broke, no money. So it started, and then single family home, and now he has 250 of them. So, and I said, what's the advice you have to give it to me? He says, don't worry about if you don't have money, it'll come, but you should know what to do. Exactly.
Hmm.
And so I asked him, what's the best advice to buy property? He said, the buying is the best time, actually. So if you have, let's say, if God forbid, if somebody has divorce or some kind of emergency, then they will just throw the property, unfortunately.
Hmm.
So the money, the better deal you will get, that is not that we wish everybody gets some kind of emergency, but the negotiation is when you buy, not when you sell.
Right. Yeah, you definitely make money when you buy, in the negotiation, which kind of goes back to, what I said earlier. Real estate is relational. It's relationships.
Uh,
So if you know that person who is going through, that hardship, and they need to sell, you're actually doing them, in some circumstances, you're doing them a favor, because if they need that money to, move out of state or pay medical bills,
mm,
you're helping them move forward, but you're also, helping yourself put another portfolio or property in your portfolio, or what have you. So yeah, it all comes back to those relationships, and just being connected to the community, and providing that value moving forward.
and that is so true. Like you said, if you know the whole story about it, then probably you can either help them or whatever. I mean, and but his advice was that was you're gonna make any profit based on that only, pretty much major part. then the other, I said, what are the other advice? And he had that is buy a single small family units. Do not go for the big houses a lot because it's easy to sell those, and do not combine them in a big, uh, unless you are very good at that. So do not buy like 5, 10 condos, combine unit, multi-unit. So,
Hmm.
and then his advice was also that a lot in those multiple units, a lot is the interaction. So
Hmm.
if one community or one person doesn't like the other, or four other they just have a lot of fights, then it's so
Right.
his advice was play small, 2 3. So he has 250 of them, but they all spread a little bit around, so they are not like in one whole building.
Right. Yeah, and that's what I like about real estate is, there's certain niches that, will resonate with me, that might not resonate with you. So, your friend with that advice, it's great advice. And, that works for him. That might work for other people. I know it has. For other people, it may not work because, they want to get into like short-term rentals or mobile home parks, or there's just so many different niches. So once you kind of find your niche, at least from my experience, that's when the real magic kind of happens, and you really do dive in and learn and make those connections. That's when the fun really starts, in my opinion.
And his story was very similar. He said, I was broke, I was in the bar drinking, and I had no money. So I was just watching that commercial, it comes real estate, have you ever thought of blah blah. And he said, somehow I was just paying attention to that, and after that never looked back. Now I own 250 units. And so his advice was, don't worry about, yes, but he would go every week himself and around on all of them, take care. I mean, at least he knew in and out of all of them. It's not just sitting and enjoying it, which he's probably enjoying too. But at least he was very involved working in all of them. Which is great. So, what is your take on what is your take on small units versus large? Which one you think are better?
So I don't know about better. I actually own, both of them. So, I own, try to have a diversified portfolio. So, like I said, I did start out with the smaller single family homes. We still have a handful of those. But passively, I invest in larger, multifamily buildings. So, a 200 unit in Atlanta or a 50 unit in Phoenix. And I'm just a small percentage owner of those, but it's a different kind of investment because it's super passive. So, I'm not on the mortgage. I don't take the calls from the tenants. I don't even necessarily have to see the property. All I have to do is make those connections and those relationships with the people who are putting together those bigger deals. Obviously, you have to trust them, vet them out, make sure they are who they are. They are who they say they are. They're going to do what they're going to do with my money. But that's just another way that you can diversify your portfolio. And I love passive income because it's just kind of working for you in the background, and then all of a sudden, on the 15th of the month, boom, there's a distribution. I get a paycheck from that Atlanta multifamily. So, to answer your question, I don't know if one is better or worse. It's just a matter of what you want your portfolio to look like, what your investment philosophy is personally. And for me, it's a little bit of passive, a little bit of active, because obviously I need something to do during the day, and I want to put deals together actively so I can bring along passive investors, just because I know the benefit of being a passive investor myself. So, to answer your question, it's kind of a, it depends answer, but for me, it's a little bit of single family, a little bit of multifamily, and then just kind of learning other niches and seeing what's going to fit for my portfolio to, help me achieve my goals.
Mhm. And that's true, so you can have a variety of the. So just looking at the, returns, or what would you consider highs and lows of returns on annually for these kind of.
Yeah, so typically looking at my numbers, annual returns are anywhere from probably about 8 to 12%,
Mhm.
and that's could be on the low side, especially if you buy a single family home the first year. typically that number is going to be a lot higher because you do get a lot of the tax benefits right away in that first year. So, but typically on the passive income, those passive deals for multifamily, the larger multifamily, anywhere from 10 to 12% or 8 to 12%. And then sometimes there's some equity shares in there. So it really depends on the deal. But yeah, typically what I look for is about 8 to 12%, annual returns on my investments to really make it move that needle.
Okay. And are there certain states better than the?
I'm sorry?
Are there some states better on that than the other?
Yes, for sure. So as we're kind of coming out of this pandemic in 2020, I'm sure a lot of people are reading, New York, California. A lot of those states are not the best states to invest in, and this was pretty much true even before COVID.
Mhm.
But it also depends on what you're looking at in those states as well.
Mm.
But as a passive investor for single family home for turnkeys,
Mm.
we invest in Florida. There's a lot of states in the Midwest, Indianapolis, those Midwest states. Atlanta is a great city to invest in. So it just kind of depends on what you're looking for, and again, what niche. I know mobile home parks, they're very popular in Florida and the Midwest, here in Arizona as well. But if you go to other states, they might not be. Those numbers might be a little bit lower than that 8 to 12%. So depending on the niche, kind of drives you to whatever market you're going to look at, whether that's Midwest or Florida or Arizona or internationally. There's a lot of different ways you can go, just depending on kind of what niche you're looking for.
Mm. So the mobile homes, are you talking about RVs or are you talking about actual trailer type homes?
So the mobile homes, I've not invested in mobile homes yet. It's just an interest of mine. But I do have a few friends who invest in the mobile home parks. So not the actual units themselves that the people live in, but just the land that they
Yeah.
basically have the homes they're parked on. So it's a little bit more of I don't want to say an easier investment, but there's less maintenance to it because you're not dealing with toilets and tenants for the most part. It's just basically maintaining the land, the plumbing around those mobile home parks. But again, I don't know all the ins and outs of it. It's just an area of interest of mine that I'm kind of diving into a little bit at this point.
Yeah, well, that sounds interesting because I would be interested in learning more on that too because that seems to be better. It's just land and pretty much. And on the other side, I also have friends who have invested in the commercial but more storage, like large storage units.
Mm-hmm.
And then there is just minimal, it's just a box structure pretty much, you know. But,
Right.
and then, but his take was that they are way better, because people give 10 years even upfront money and 5 years and you're done. You don't have to worry about it. It's just storage. So storage is another one, which, but it's, depends, I think, what your game plan is and how comfortable are you with something. Some people are good with storage, some are good with mobile homes, some could be good with single family home. I mean, everybody has their game, right?
Right, exactly. And yeah, to kind of play off that a little bit, in real estate, it's not necessarily what you know. Obviously, like you were talking about, you need to know the processes when you're putting in, flooring to make sure, your installer is doing it correctly.
Yeah.
But when you're going into a different niche, it's more important to connect with the people who are the strong players in that niche, because they can obviously, you can leverage them, their, expertise, their years in the industry to really get your foot in that door. So when I talk about self-storage or mobile home parks as something I want to learn about, I'm not going to go out and buy 100 books on mobile home parks and self-storage. I'll buy one or two, maybe three, get the foundation of it, but then start asking people in my mastermind, hey, do you know somebody who's in mobile home parks or self-storage? I'd really like to, have a conversation with them, or, grab a coffee with them and pick their brain on why self-storage, or what are the challenges, or that kind of thing. So again, it goes back to those relationships. Reading those books is great, but if I can sit down with you and you're a mobile home expert, that's way more valuable than me ordering 3 books on Amazon and reading them and then just having that information, but not having anybody to really
Yeah,
bounce those ideas off or say, hey, look at this deal. Is this a good deal or not? I'm not sure. So just right back to relationships.
yeah, and that is important is the real estate. Now, I have seen recently there's a lot of activity in real estate. Actually, the house I live, smaller unit, but the price has really gone down. There are like 5 or 10 buyers in the line already looking for. They say, "Oh, do you want to sell it, sell it, sell it?" So why is that? Although we are facing, the massive pandemic and just all that, all of a sudden, real estate is a big interest. And is that happening? Are you seeing that too?
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's a big interest now, just kind of going through the pandemic, because I think a lot of people did, realize and suffer. They realized they had one source of income. When that source goes away, obviously during 2020, a lot of people got furloughed or lost their jobs or lost their businesses. And that if that's their only source of income, then they're looking around thinking, what do I do now? Or how am I going to pay the bills? And I think that's where real estate really comes in, because you can create those passive streams of income, and even if it's an extra $500 a month or $1,000 a month, that can pay somebody's mortgage or rent or put food on the table. And if that's coming in passively, that's just another great way to have income come to you, during a pandemic or during, one of these down cycles where you may have lost your job or your income is not where it was 2 years ago. So I think that's why a lot of people are looking to real estate, because it has been proven, having multiple streams of income is, a great financial tool. And real estate is just one of those ways to create those multiple streams of income for a lot of different people in a lot of different ways.
Mhm. And that is true that, it is better to diversify. I mean, you should have all kind of, but have only once you feel comfortable. Do not throw the money away because there are
Mhm.
scammers out there and they will just eat you and then you will land. And there are people who would even get as a land and sit on it for 15 years, 10 years, and that might turn later on into something big, right? I mean, there are people who do investment on the lands too. And so, I mean, it just depends on what you are feeling comfortable with or without. So also tell me a little bit about with COVID, is there a more shift towards lesser of the high rises with what we have seen probably in New York?
Yeah, that's what it seems like. I mean, here in Phoenix, there's not a ton of high rises, not like a New York or a San Francisco. We definitely have them here, but from what I'm reading, especially in New York, I'm born and raised in New York, so I kind of keep a pulse on that market as well. But yeah, it seems like there is somewhat of a shift. A lot of people are moving to single family homes or just places where they have a little bit more access to a backyard, or they can walk around the block without getting into an elevator that 20 other people have gotten into that hour previously. So for me, I live in a single family home. I walk my dog twice a day, so I got out every day during the pandemic. It was great. My brother, he lives in Fort Lauderdale, and he lives on the top floor of, I think it's 9 floors or something like that. And he's basically quarantining in that unit, just because he's a little bit fearful of walking out and getting in the elevator, and a lot of people in the building are. So, yeah, a lot of people are making that shift from those bigger buildings to single family homes where, yeah, they just have more space, they have more yard space for their animals, and just more freedom to, like I said, walk around the neighborhood. Living in a smaller apartment complex. It works for some people, but during COVID, a lot of people realized, hey, this isn't for me, or I want out. And, that's where that trend basically, I think, started from.
Okay. Also, a few more questions came up, and I will ask you real quick. So, what is your best advice if you are interested in a property? Should you look at it day and night to see the community, schools? What are your best advice to when you're making investment?
So for investments, I would definitely say, definitely look at the demographics of the area that you want to invest in.
Mhm.
If you're seeing single family homes are, doing really well in Indianapolis, for example, then again, going back to relationships, I would contact either an investor or a realtor in that area, preferably one who's both, kind of like myself, who can kind of balance both worlds. But definitely make a connection to somebody who's in that market, because there's definitely going to be pockets. If you're looking in Indianapolis, I'm sure there's great areas of Indianapolis, and I'm sure there's bad areas of Indianapolis, just like any city. So you really want somebody who is boots on the ground in that city that can say, oh no, stay away from Main Street, it's not really looking great, or yes, Main Street is awesome, here are the numbers. So that's the first thing I would say, is definitely connect with somebody who has that expertise and experience for what you're looking for in that area.
And one of the tips, somebody shared with me was go in the evening if you have time and see what is the atmosphere. So there's a different look day and night. So that you know both, there could be high crime or nothing. And then how about schools? So, you can look at the numbers online anyways for the school data. How important is that?
Yeah, school data is definitely very important. Especially on the realtor side, the residential, people just buying and selling homes as their primary residence. Schools are very important, obviously, if they have kids. But even as investments as well, that's something you do want to look at. I wouldn't say it's it's not as big of a driver as your primary residence if you do have kids. But at the same time, if you are renting to families who are going to have kids, you obviously want to be in, a good school district where those renters do feel comfortable renting that home, knowing that they're in, this school district, as opposed to a one that is a little bit worse or not rated as highly. So, schools is definitely one of the things that you would want to look at and put on your checklist for sure.
Okay. Well, thank you for coming our show and giving us great tips. And check out your website. So you can tell my audience about your website, so maybe they can learn more about you.
Yeah, of course. My website is called sevenfigurecapital.com, and it's all spelled out just the way it sounds. And the easiest way to get hold of me is to actually email me. So it's just greg@sevenfigurecapital.com. And I was going to say, for your audience, we didn't talk about the book today, but I do have a recent a book that I co-authored. And if anybody from your audience wants to send me an email, mention that you saw me on this show, I'll send you my free chapter. So I'll just send you the chapter from the book that I wrote, and just as a gift for your audience for making it all the way through, and just shoot me an email and I'll gladly send it over to you.
Sure. What is the name of the book?
So I have it right here. It's called Success Habits of Superachievers.
Oh, okay. And success, and it's on Amazon.
Yep, it's on Amazon. It was a #1 bestseller in 30 plus categories. Wow. A lot of great people are in this book. So it's basically a conglomeration of every person. There's 80 of us, 85 people. Each person just wrote one chapter, put it all in one book, and it's just very powerful. A lot about personal development, mindset, and there are a lot of real estate investors in there, but it's not the main theme of the book. There are other entrepreneurs and other successful people that wrote about their niche, not real estate related. So yeah.
Okay, great. And you never know, people, like I said, my friend, he was watching in the bar. Maybe somebody watching our show might get the idea, and maybe the next big thing, 250 units. Well, you never know, right?
That's right. I'd love to be that inspiration. So thank you again for having me. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Take care. Stay safe. Okay.
Thank you. You too.